An infectious disease that broke out in 2020 put the Chinese city of 11 million people on the headlines all over the world.
全省新增新冠肺炎確診。
being screened and isolated, not only to try to get control of the virus, but also to try to help the people.
Wuhan, the city at the heart of a public health crisis in China, is shutting its public transport network to try to prevent the spread of a virus that's already infected hundreds of people.
In Denmark, a mock-up of the Chinese national flag featuring elements of the virus appeared in a newspaper.
I'd like to just ask the Chinese for a formal apology. I have not heard one word.
It's still finding time to get its feelings hurt and wasting time asking for apologies.
They speak to a wider bigotry towards China in the reporting of the virus in many Western media outlets. At a time when responsible journalism is required to inform the public, many of these renowned international outlets have run irresponsible stories on the outbreak featuring rumors, discrimination, and even racism. We will take you into what has become just as much an epidemic as the virus itself, that of xenophobia in the media. For much of mankind's history, infectious diseases have brought out horrible fears of contagion, and for good reason. They have been quite successful at killing people. And over the past 3 months, the real nightmare for people in China and around the world has been the disease named COVID-19.
First of all, we now have a name for the disease. And it is COVID-19, and I will spell it COVID-19.
COVID-19 stands for Coronavirus Disease 2019. And the intention with that name is to help people understand both when this disease arose, that it's a new coronavirus, and that it actually causes disease in humans, and also to differentiate it from other ones, like the ones that cause the SARS disease and other MERS disease that are caused by coronaviruses. And when we name diseases like this, we're very careful to try and avoid creating any kind of stigma and attaching it to a place or to a country.
Wuhan is the epicenter of the coronavirus
Geographical
outbreak.
names are controversial because they can be seen as stigmatizing, especially when the origin of the virus remains debatable. That was exactly the point when the WHO chose the clinical and nondescript name COVID-19. But from senior correspondents in Western media outlets to American politicians, they have other preferences. From January 21st to February 8th, Eunice Yun, CNBC Beijing bureau chief, tweeted 25 times with the hashtag Wuhan virus. U.S. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy has continued to use the stigmatizing language.
Trump doubled and tripled down on rejecting calling the disease COVID-19, instead calling it the Chinese virus.
U.S. President Donald Trump posted tweets using the phrase Chinese virus and drew backlash.
COVID-19 is not a Chinese virus. I mean, Donald Trump has said, and it's widely reported in conservative media, that this is a foreign virus. No, viruses do not have a nationality.
Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's wrong, Kung flu. And do you think using the term Chinese virus, that puts Asian Americans at risk, that people might target that?
No, not at all. Especially Trump calling it the Wuhan or the Chinese.
Tying coronavirus to China and Chinese people isn't just a racist dog whistle. It's a whole racist orchestra.
Why does the apparently stigmatizing name enjoy such popularity?
I thought about H1N1 outbreak in 2009. You tell me, was it called the America virus? In fact, there was even a few earlier cases, actually just before in Mexico. Was it called the Mexico virus? But this isn't the question of just the name. It's the derogatory intention behind the name.
It comes from China.
Where did it originate? It originated in Wuhan.
There's a debate in the United States. Many conservative lawmakers have been using that term, call it Chinese flu, because that means that Donald Trump will not be held responsible. I don't think that there are policies of major news organizations in the United States to use the name, but when it happens, it's wrong.
These names are obviously not liked by Chinese people, and they've taken to the internet to express their anger.
Que los hace, no lo hace con maldad, sino por ignorancia o falta de información. Pero estos pequeños detalles van acumulando y nos está afectando a una comunidad.
How can you still be in denial when Italy already locked down the whole country?
Patients in all countries are victims.
What do we find mostly in social media? We find more the younger generation of people out there expressing their voices. What I really like and what I think is fantastic, and it should be true for every country, every person should be proud of where they live and proud of the country that they live in. Look how the Chinese came together. And that's all over the national media. When you stop demonizing any country and just talk about it from a point of common sense, the majority of Chinese citizens think we have a sense of civic duty.
In fact, China has a long history of being stigmatized over disease. Echoes of that are still sometimes heard. History has shown racism does not help. It worsens a crisis like the COVID-19. From the outbreak of the COVID-19, rumors and conspiracy theories around China have spread. After the coronavirus broke out, the New York Times has repeatedly claimed that the Chinese government declined offers by international disease experts to help battle the outbreak. But a closer examination would find the claim unfounded.
中国政府始终本着公开、透明、负责任的态度，及时向国内外发布疫情信息。
各位媒体朋友，大家下午好，欢迎来到国务院联防联控机制新闻发布会。当前疫情防控正处于。
While China is seeking international cooperation in dealing with the health crisis, the country's response to the coronavirus has been described as botched, showing China's governance failure, exposing deep flaws in China's political system, or China can't help but lie about this virus.
A lot of the Western media coverage focused on the lack of information at the beginning and on social media controversies rather than the core issue itself. Could be the answer to a single question in the survey. I've done analyses over the years of global coverage of Chinese economy, and American media coverage tends to be more negative overall. I don't say that necessarily means that it is incorrect, but the tonality of coverage in many of the major American newspapers, New York Times in particular, tends to be more negative than neutral.
There's a very specific and intentional and coordinated Cold War anti-China coordinated campaign. It's the Western version, the United States version of propaganda. They focus on the small thing you did wrong rather than the big thing that you did right. Even if the small thing you did wrong was weeks and weeks and weeks ago, and the huge thing you did right was yesterday, they still headline with the small thing that you did wrong. And they do that intentionally to make you look bad. Another thing that they do is what's called burying the lead. This is the same thing. Actually, there's no bad news at all. And deep down in the article, they reveal the truth, but in the headline, they start off with an accusation. The accusation is false, but they use the headline because they want more readers. And is the headline ever positive when they utilize these kind of manipulative techniques? Of course not. It's always negative.
For example, look at these two headlines from the New York Times just 2 weeks apart. The first criticizes the impact of China's lockdown strategy in Hubei province. The second headline, this time dealing with the Chinese-style lockdown in Italy, says that its approach could be a model for the rest of the world.
The Chinese government approached the WHO to ask it to stand up and say that China...
All member states were praising China for what it did. China took action massively at the epicenter, at the source of the outbreak. It's a shutdown of the Wuhan city, and that helped in preventing cases from being exported to other provinces in China and the rest of